back in the last federal election, Ezra released a book. The book was called The Sopranos. It had a picture of Justin Trudeau represented as one of the characters in The Sopranos, and like it had his cabinet, various members of his cabinet also looking like characters from the TV show The Sopranos. The lettering Sopranos looked like The Sopranos. Anyways, this was the book. It was supposed to be about how like Justin Trudeau, the Liberals are all corrupt, all this stuff. He also created lawn signs to promote his book. Now, this is during a federal election in Canada, which means there's like lawn signs everywhere for all the candidates. And so the other thing that you'll find on lawns at this time are signs for like causes. It'll be like, education cuts hurt kids or something like this. And a lot of these groups can advertise this way during a campaign and pick a side because they basically register as what's called a third-party advertiser. So it's not that they're receiving direct funds from the party, right? So it's not like the Conservative Party paid for Ezra to be a third-party advertiser, but they could just say we're a third-party advertiser and start, advertising that they're against this one candidate. They could do that. Instead, what they did was they decided not to register as a third party and release their book and put up these yard signs. Now, it looks very political, right? Which is why you're not allowed to do this during an election. Because you can imagine what would happen if the floodgates like burst and you had, I don't know, Amazon or Tesla, or name your any of the big pharma companies, any of these companies. Imagine them paying for billboards that tell you like the Liberals suck or the NDP sucks, and they put them up everywhere. You could sort of do that in the United States because they're like, fuck it, corporations are people too, my friend. They could throw as much money into the ring just like anyone else can. And the American system, I think, is struggling because of that. I don't think it helped the American system. Here in Canada, we do it a bit differently. Where we're like, we set limits on how much you can donate to campaigns, and we also limit the extent to which third-party advertisers or corporations can just donate into campaigns. So you need to register as a third party. Now that's the background. He got fined for doing this, and it was a $3,000 fine, and he's now going to appeal it, I believe, to the Supreme Court. I don't know how this works. He's appealing it to somewhere. There must be like a court before the Supreme Court, because I don't think it's going to the Supreme Court yet. And I'm not quite sure how that works. But that's basically where we're at in terms of this thing. So he's saying right now in this video that he's going to be bringing it up to that level. And we'll dip into all the nonsense that he says.
In 2019, I published my best-selling book, The Sopranos, What the Media Won't Tell You About Justin Trudeau's Corruption. It's 2021 now, but Trudeau is still prosecuting me for that, spending hundreds of thousands of dollars of taxpayers.
I will say, so let's look, I want to look at this cover. When you see this cover, I guess, let me move my, when you see this cover, do you feel like this is being pro or anti-Trudeau?
Well, it makes him look like a ghost. So, I mean, it doesn't, I wouldn't say pro, that's for sure.
Or what about the subtitle here? What the media won't tell you about Justin Trudeau's corruption.
Yeah.
I think
I would say definitely
neutral.
pro. Definitely pro. Corruption, good.
Yeah. Wait, Viano said neutral?
Yeah.
I think we remarked on how, like, there's an element to which people think the Sopranos are cool, so it could, like, have that effect. But it's clear to me, at least, that the intent here is to paint Trudeau in a bad light. Especially with the highlighting of Trudeau's corruption.
I don't even think it's a clear enough Sopranos, like, reference. It doesn't sound like it. It doesn't look like it. Like, it's just...
Well, let's pull up the Sopranos.
Yeah. Do we have, like, a poster?
Like, the P, I think, is a gun. And in this one, they changed the S to a $sign. That's about the only similarity, aside from mashing liberal and Sopranos together.
Yeah, I've seen some. It looks like there's some version of The Sopranos that have the kind of like, rather than like as the dot of the I, it's like in that sort of style. So here's like what I mean. Like the is over the O here, right? And then you have
Sure.
the O, and that's kind of like the over the I. And like you can see some of the black and white imagery sort of also is very also like sort of, oh my god, stop it, it won't let me. All right. It's also reminiscent of the black and whiteness of that as well. I mean, there's similarities there. It's clear that they're making some sort of and like there's a gun, but this one it's a $sign because they're talking about corruption. Like it's a clear parody of The Sopranos.
But when did The Sopranos end? Because I've never seen it, and I don't know if it was on while I've been alive
Oh yeah, but that doesn't
or
matter.
like
I mean, like,
aware.
Ezra's older than we are, right? So this is he's pulling from I mean, like, look, their whole show is appealing to older people anyway.
I suppose.
Yeah, Columbo, that super that's
Super
relevant
recent,
reference.
yeah. David Menzies, Jesus Christ. I mean, that's pretty much all David Menzies is someone who like repeats all these old messages over and over again. Old references, sorry.
Oh shit, never mind. It kept going until
Now, but Trudeau-
2007.
Yeah, I here's like, maybe this is gonna scare people, but like I never watched The Sopranos at all. I always knew of it as like a cultural thing, but I never had HBO growing up, so I never watched it.
I worked at HBO. I never watched it.
I want to go back someday because everyone talks about how great it is. I'll probably watch it at some point in my life.
I was 9 years old when it ended.
You bring the youth to the party, you know.
Mm-hmm.
is still prosecuting me for that, spending hundreds of thousands of dollars of taxpayer.
So he said they're still prosecuting him for this. They already fined him. Like it's, if anything, they succeeded in prosecuting him. You know, it would almost be like you're in jail after 10 years after murdering someone or something. You're like, they're still prosecuting me for this. Like, no. You were caught, and they just want their money from the fine. So he's going to appeal it, which is, he has every right to do that. But that doesn't mean that they're going after him anymore. He's just trying to go to another court to say, this is unconstitutional. How dare they do this to me? And we'll address that a little bit in a bit. We've already addressed that before on previous shows, but it gets a little more interesting in this one.
Taxpayers' money, deploying half a dozen police, lawyers, and bureaucrats to silence me. Back in 2019, Trudeau sent me his first threat letter telling me the book and our ads for it were illegal. The next month, he had two 30-year veterans of the RCMP grill me for an hour over why I wrote the book and why I was so mean to Trudeau and why I didn't register with the government first before writing the book. Remember this?
The knowledge that you would have or not have of the Election Act, the Canada Elections Act, when you are planning the book and the new third-party rules, because I believe there's some comments on your site as well about that, did you give any consideration of saying, maybe I should register as a third party for this circumstance, or maybe I shouldn't because of my interpretation of what I'm going to do, or did you not make that determination?
Tim, I appreciate the question. Yeah, I absolutely did think about that at great length.
So this might be difficult for you to follow, but what he just played was an admission of guilt.
Yeah, no, that wasn't that difficult. That was pretty fucking straightforward. Did you think about this law before you committed your action? Yes, I did. Fucking hell,
it's even more than that, because what he specifically asked was like, did you consider the law and whether or not you should register when you were deciding to release this book. And what the RCMP is trying to get out there is to what extent he intended to release this book for the election. Right? Now we're going to break this down a bit more because Ezra is going to go into it a bit more. I don't want to like lead it all up front. But part of the law is, yes, you can release a book about Trudeau at any point. There's nothing against the law when you do that. Especially if, like, say, so part of this is you have to understand the Canadian electoral system. So unlike America, where there's like a scheduled, like every 4 years you have a presidential election, we don't have that in Canada. Right now we have a minority government, and with the minority government, it can dissolve at any time. All that is required is that everyone, or at least a majority of the parliament, all votes, makes a vote of non-confidence, and then an election is called because of that. Because everyone else, the majority of the parliament, said we lack confidence in Trudeau being the leader. And so the Liberals don't hold a majority of the parliament right now. So there's enough other like opposition parties that can vote to like take him out. What's keeping Justin Trudeau in power right now is other parties like the NDP, the few members of the Greens, the Bloc Québécois, have worked with the Liberals to get certain things done. Okay, so that's what's keeping them in power. But it could happen at any time. So this is where, like, if I plan to write a book and I want the book to, say, impact what people are going to think about Justin Trudeau such that it might influence them one way or not for an election, you're allowed to do that. And you could do that at any... Sorry, I'm going to hit my light here. You could do that sort of at any time. And then say the election comes. Say you already have a release date, and your release date is August 2019. And then all of a sudden it turns out that they call the election for September 2019. And it just so happens that your book coincides with the election, even though you didn't plan for it to be released during the election. Then you're fine. You're in the clear. You did a good. What you can't do is what Ezra did, which is like, there's an election happening. Now I'm releasing my book. And I announced to the RCMP that are investigating me that I am releasing this specifically for the election. Now you've broken the law. That's what you can't do.
There were so many crazy things they said. I was sure that they would drop the case out of sheer embarrassment after I published that hidden camera video because, you know, after the embarrassment of that video, they went silent for a long, long time. But no, after waiting for about a year, they sent me a letter convicting me of illegally publishing and promoting a book. And they fined me $3,000. What do you think? Should I pay it?
Yes.
Or should I appeal it? Trick question. You know I would never willingly accept Trudeau's censorship. He'll literally have to duct tape my mouth shut for me to stop criticizing him. And even then, I would just use my fingers to type. I just won't ever, ever stop because we're in a democracy.
A democracy that voted people into power that legislated third-party election rules that you are currently violating.
I can't help but, you know, obviously he knew that this is all like, this is why he did it, is so he can milk the outrage over it.
Yeah, I've speculated this on the show, but in my more conspiratorial moments, I think that he could be receiving funding from some sort of corporate donors that want to get rid of these laws altogether. In particular, the oil lobby probably has a big incentive to want to advertise during elections to go against parties that they perceive to be cutting in on their game and trying to get moved towards like green energy, right? They probably want to get rid of these laws. So one way you can get rid of this law is try to get Ezra to file a constitutional or try to break the law, then file it all the way up to the Supreme Court and hope that it overturns the finance laws in this country. To say something like, we should be allowed to do this, freedom of speech, yada, yada, yada. It's going against my charter right to freedom of expression. Now this law is gone, and now corporations can just spend unlimited amounts of money in our election, campaigns. That's, if I had to put my dark conspiratorial hat on, that could be what's going on here, just like it happened in the United States with Citizens United, which has made it basically open season for corporations in America to spend during elections. That's, now I don't know that it would succeed in Canada. Unlike America as well, we haven't politicized our Supreme Court in the same way, and I'm not sure. I don't know how the balance of the court is right now, or to what extent this would fail or succeed if it made it all the way up to the Supreme Court. My guess is it won't succeed if I had to put my finger on it, but it's clear that they're going to try to do this. I think part of the issue is that it's so obviously bullshit. That's probably why it can't succeed.
I think that it's I see what you're saying, and I don't want to rule it out or anything. I know it's your dark conspiratorial mind, so it's not necessarily something that you're yeah, this is what's happening. But I think it's just, he's grifters be grifting. He's just get people to watch my shit and get people to donate money to me so I can pay off all these fucking lawsuits and all this other shit before the shit goes down.
Yeah, but here's where I start getting off of that bandwagon. This is going to be a costly appeal, especially if he wants to go all the way to the Supreme Court. He's got to spend a lot of money on lawyers and all these back end costs to do this, and that's why it's I don't know. So I got the police are coming.
They're coming for you. They're coming for you, Jody.
I don't know. I mean, it's always hard for me to assess to what extent they actually have money issues or money problems, or to what extent that is them playing it up so that they can get all these donations from the rubes that they've inculcated. Created.
Well, let's be real. He doesn't have to spend all that much money on lawyers. He has a law degree.
Yeah.
He's a lawyer.
If law degrees make you misunderstand the law as much as he does on his show constantly, then that's really depressing. I also want to say, it is amusing to me that he keeps on referring to this as Justin Trudeau's trying to censor him, or Justin Trudeau is the one doing this. Justin Trudeau has absolutely nothing to do with this. This complaint could have been filed by anyone. Anyone could have called in and been this looks like third-party election violations. Can you investigate that? That's it. But he keeps on saying it's Justin Trudeau trying to censor me. My guess is Justin Trudeau probably wouldn't want to wade into this at all, and therefore didn't care. And it's not likely that it had an effect on the election. Let's be real.
Nope.
So, yeah, but I don't know. It's investing in the yard signs and everything too, just to sell a book. The financial incentives seem weird to me if it's just a grift. It feels like it's serving some sort of higher goal in mind. It feels that way. I have no proof, no evidence, and I'd love to be wrong about this, but who knows?
We're not his favorite country, communist China.
There's a level of admiration I actually have for China.
China and their basic dictatorship.
Because their basic dictatorship is allowing them
to turn their economy on a dime.
Economy around on a dime.
So how many fucking times do I have to hear this clip? He seriously plays that clip on his show twice a week. Twice a week I hear that fucking clip. And what does it tell you? All it tells you is Justin Trudeau is saying, unlike democracies, China can do things like that, like they did during the pandemic. And wouldn't that be nice if we, like China, could just lock things down during the pandemic and get this thing sorted right away and move on with our lives? No, instead we have messy, capitalistic, whatever, democratic nonsense that we're should we open up? Should we not open up? How many deaths are worth it? How many not? So, I don't know. Maybe he has a point there. A little point, It doesn't mean I want it. It's just maybe he has a point. But they play that clip all the fucking time. I hate it. I'm just checking in to make sure. Are we still all here, or is my internet dying?
Hello.
Nice, we're here. Okay,
Nope,
good.
I'm here.
Hello.
I'm just nervous after last Wednesday.
It's a little laggy, but I honestly can't tell if it's me or from you. So I have no idea.
I don't know either.
We just filed our appeal to this conviction, and I'd like to show it to you, our appeal, that is. I'll take you through a few points on this video, but if you're interested, you can read our entire 7-page
It's not
response
worth
submitted by
reading at
my
all. Jesus
lawyers.
Christ.
You can see that at the website.
Look at it. All 7 pages. That's a lot of pages. You know, if you're filing an appeal, I heard the more pages, the better. That's... You know, why didn't they make it 8 pages? Come on, Ezra.
Yeah, as long as page 1 and 7 have like pertinent information on it, you're good. Just put blah 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 on pages 2 through 6, and they'll think that your appeal has a whole bunch of like relevant shit in there.
I love, like, so it's like, in conclusion, let's read the conclusion here for fun. In brief, as a result of the foregoing, Rebel News submits that the notices should be withdrawn forthwith, given the unconstitutional, that's questionable, troubling nature. You know, the legal term, troubling. Judge, this should be thrown out because of how troubling it is. The selective unfair treatment of Rebel News and the clear application of the book promotion exemption in the circuit. We'll get to that in a second. But yeah, I love that. Troubling. This is so troubling.
Save Rebel News.
Oh yeah, go to our website.
I like
that
our
redirects you
lawyer's
to
reply. He
donate to
points
us
out
money.
that Trudeau's elections cops themselves, in their very first threat letter to me, acknowledged that books and the promotion of books are exempt from election laws. And yet they have been prosecuting me for more than a year for doing just that. Here's how my lawyer put it. Ms. Gigou's letter specifically referenced exemptions to the definition of election advertising under the Act, including the promotion of the sale of a book if the book was planned to be made available to the public regardless of whether there was to be an election.
Now, let's read that again slowly so that it sinks into Ezra. An exception to the third-party law is if the book was planned to be made available to the public, regardless of whether there was to be an election. Now, what does that mean? If you write the book specifically because there's going to be an election, and you release it because there's going to be an election, that's illegal, Ezra. That is not covered in the law. You are not exempt for that behavior. I love, he reads, I mean, this is worse than before. We've always talked about how they show on screen the evidence that debunks him. In this one, he plays it and reads it out loud. Right? And I want you to keep that in mind, regardless of whether there's an election or not aspect of this, because it's going to pay off comedically, I believe.
Emphasis as per Ms. Gigou's letter, indicating the potential applicability of this exception to the promotion of the book. So that's my lawyer pointing out that from the very beginning, Trudeau's censors knew that books and the promotion of books were exempt from regulation. They even said that in their first threat letter to me, but still they're hunting me for more than a year and they convicted me? What on earth is going on? And how about this? On January...
So I want to know what he thinks the audience is supposed to take away from that. So he's going, look, it states clearly in the law that I'm exempt. And yet they fined me anyways? And
they convicted him.
They convicted him. So it's like you would have to believe that each cog along the way here was somehow all in a conspiracy theory just to get him. It couldn't be that he actually violated the law, could it? It has to be that the RCMP were in on it, the judges that convicted me are in on it, they're all in on it. It's Trudeau. Trudeau was pulling the puppet strings the whole time.
Trudeau only became leader of the Liberals and then prime minister to do this.
It was
No other reason.
because even Trudeau knew in advance that Ezra was going to write a book called The Libranos. He saw it all coming.
23rd, 2020, Mr. Levant, as a representative of Rebel News, submitted to an hour-long interview with CCE investigators, RCMP veterans, without first being provided a charter caution as required under the Commissioner's Compliance and Enforcement Policy of the Commissioner of Canada Elections.
He's basically complaining that he didn't get read like his Miranda rights. You know, you have the right to remain silent. He wasn't being arrested.
I wish he had been.
He submitted. And the other thing is, like, they were like, hey, can we talk to you? And he was like, sure. And now he's going, but they didn't provide me these things. And it's like, you weren't going to prison. They wanted to know your intent. So whether or not you were guilty of a fine. A finable offense. I'm trying to think, it's like if you get a parking ticket. And then you're like, hey, before you write out this parking ticket, can you read me my Miranda rights? So stupid.
They actually include an audio tape with every parking ticket that they just like leave on your window.
You have a right to remain silent.
Yeah, it's like one of those like birthday cards where like when you open it, it starts making the noise.
Oh my god, that's amazing. That actually is the ticket. Like they just, you sir,
You have to wait
ticketed.
for the whole thing to read through.
Oh my god, that'd be amazing. It would also be dystopian, but amazing for the comedic effect right now.
That's a long way of saying actual criminals are read their rights before police interrogate them. Actual murderers and terrorists get that, but not accused authors. But why?
They don't read it to you necessarily before interrogating you. They do it while they're like arresting you. You weren't being he wasn't being arrested. It's not like they handcuffed them. In fact, he could have. It was perfectly legal for him to say, I will not submit to your investigative review. And not showed up. Now, that might have impacted whether or not he got the fine or not. I mean, like, doing the interview didn't help him either. Because he got the fine anyways. But he could have just declined. He wasn't forced there. What an idiot.
Why would they follow the rules, really? I mean, they're not neutral anymore. They're running errands for Trudeau. The law is just an excuse that they're using
it's
to
all
harass
this
me, to waste
conspiracy
my
theory.
time and to rack up my legal bills. I won't go through the entire letter now.
It's all to rack up his legal bills. Yet he's going to make his legal bills more expensive by taking this all the way to the Supreme Court. It was all a plan just to make my legal trouble. So, like, bury me in legal fees. This guy is suing everyone. So for him, you think a $3,000 fine is going to be the thing that, like, sinks him?
I hope the court, like, makes him pay the, like, crown lawyers' salaries or whatever. Like,
yes. I mean, I don't, only because of how, like, the implications that would follow from that and what they could do to, like, people who I think don't deserve to be treated like that. But he's such a piece of shit. Like, doing this is a waste of everyone's time. But, like, I guess the lawyers are being paid. I don't know.
You can read the whole thing at saverebelnews.com if you like, but there's one part of it that's just great. As you know, Trudeau's cops say that it's illegal to publish or promote a book coinciding with an election. It's obviously wrong. That's not what the law says. That's not real life. There were actually 24 books published during the Canadian election campaign about Trudeau. I actually learned that from Trudeau's own cops.
I've got a question for you. I've answered a few of your questions now. Have you investigated any of the other authors who published books about Trudeau at the exact same time as me? Have you investigated John Ivison's book or Aaron Ware's book?
There's over 24 books that were published around that period.
You haven't answered my question. Have you investigated John Iveson or Aaron Wary's books?
I haven't.
Have you?
I have.
So my lawyer put together.
I just want to come in here. I'm loving that after all the petitions, the last one maybe Save Rebel News. No, sadly, SaveRebelNews.com has been up there for a long time because it's just this campaign. It's the idea of like, oh no, they're taking me to get fined $3,000. I got investigated by the RCMP. That's what this SaveRebelNews.com thing is, and it's been going on for almost a year. So it's not. They've had many a petition in the interim, sadly. So yes, his big complaint here is like, look, there was these two books. These two books were published at around the same period of time that mine were. And the RCMP officer mentions 24 books. There was, in fact, 24 Trudeau-related books published in and around the election period. Now, do any of these look like they're like trying to push? Let me see if I can get I don't know if he's going to pull it up later. I'm curious what the John Iveson book subtitle is here. Pull this up. Come on, Google Books. What are you doing? Okay. So it says Trudeau, the education of a prime minister. Is this pro or con Trudeau, do you think? Trudeau, the education of a prime minister.
Against. Wait, he had been prime minister already because it was 2019. Pro.
Yeah. Pro. See, I can't tell. Can't tell.
That one's neutral. I'm gonna go with neutral there.
Yeah, it seems neutral. I would. My stamp for neutrality is on this one. Because it's like, it could be that like there was a lot that he fucked up. That's the education of a prime minister. Or it could be like he's getting better with time. He's being educated as a prime minister, right? Like, it's hard for me to assess that. What's the other book? Promise and Peril. See if that pull this one up. It says Promise and Peril, Justin Trudeau in Power. What do we think? Negative, positive? I mean, again, it seems really neutral, doesn't it? It's both promise and peril. Right?
Sure, I guess.
Look, he's got a stern face. He's like, oh man, look at all the promise and the periling going on in my face.
Remember when Trudeau didn't have a beard?
Yeah.
Wow.
COVID has affected us all. Now, I remind you, let's do this with one more. Let me pull this up here. And with that, we got Libranos, What the Media Won't Tell You About Justin Trudeau's Corruption.
Yeah, neutral. They're all neutral. It's fine.
Yeah, it's pretty neutral. I'm gonna agree with you.
You're all full of shit. This is clearly corruption. And what the media won't tell you about is corruption. The other thing is, I believe, it's been a while since I looked into this, but I think the Iveson book had been in the works for a while. I mean, it's pretty like bland title, The Education of a Prime Minister. I'm pretty sure it had been in the works for a while, and one of those things, as I said, where it just happened that it coincided with the election. It wasn't like planned for the election, which is another reason why the RCMP are not investigating John Iveson. And my guess is they're not investigating this Wary person. I also want to say, they said there was 24 books that were published around that period. These two books were included in that 24. My guess is at any one time in Canada, there's going to be Justin Trudeau books published. And I wonder if there's like some heightened frequency around the election that all these books come out, or if there's like an even distribution throughout like time about books written about them.
I think it's probably pretty concentrated, but regardless, like it's more likely that they probably did actually do that like third party thing also, because they were probably published by like, actual publishers and not whatever company it is that publishes Rebel.
No one. They self-released it on Amazon.
Then there we go.
Yeah. Exactly.
I've investigated John Iverson or Aaron Wary's books.
I haven't.
Have you?
I haven't.
So my lawyer put together a small chart showing a couple of pro-Trudeau books that were published at the same time as mine was, and how they were all promoted, including with tax dollars from state broadcasters. For example, there was a liberal PR book about Trudeau written by the CBC's Aaron Wary called Promise and Peril. It did very poorly. By the way, no one really bought it. Why would you buy it when you can just go to the Liberal Party website and get the same propaganda for free? And then there was John Iverson's pro-Trudeau.
The funny thing is, I wouldn't even have like read this as being a pro-Trudeau book based on like the cover alone. But whatever. And I don't know if I want to take Ezra's word on it that it is indeed pro-Trudeau.
So HarperCollins, one of the largest 5 publishing companies in the English language, chances are Aaron Wary had a publishing agent that was like, oh yeah, we'll like make sure that things are legit.
But it's not just about like making it like look legit or something like this. My guess is that why these people are not coming down under this law probably has to do with the fact that Aaron Wary probably got the deal to write this book way before an election was ever called. It's not like Aaron Wary had this like waiting in the wings and then we're like, election, slam, right? Like they were probably it was going through processes. And like they had agreement, they knew an election was probably going to happen around this time, and they, like, you know what I mean? But it was probably in the works long before the election came. Because of course it would. Like you can't just get a publishing deal from HarperCollins without having some sort of, or like they're not just going to publish it like they called an election. Let's call up Aaron Wary and tell him to write a book. You know, that is likely not what happened.
Trudeau book, but both were widely promoted, especially by the corporate media and the state media, who are both on the take from Trudeau's various bailouts. But those two authors and their publishers, they're not being prosecuted for making a book about Trudeau the same time I did. Because this isn't about the law. This is about Trudeau
They're out to
trying
get
to
you.
get his revenge on me and Rebel News.
Nailed it.
Well, guess what? We're not going to shut up. So we've appealed. And when we lose, which I think we might, we'll appeal again. And we'll appeal again all the way to the Supreme Court. I know that from one point of view, that makes no sense. The fine for writing and publishing and promoting this book is $3,000. Whereas appealing this fine will surely cost $30,000. Who would do that? I mean, it makes no sense, right?
It doesn't make any sense.
Well, it makes no sense if you're just worried about money. But if you're worried about Trudeau and his henchmen censoring and silencing independent criticism, censoring books, then we absolutely have to fight back, don't you think?
Yeah.
So please go to SaveRebelNews.com.
Ezra, he's only in it for the principle. It can't be any other reason that he might want to do this. Either for Ken's stated reasons earlier or my big hat conspiracy reasons. No, it's just because Ezra truly deeply cares so much about freedom. He just keeps fighting for that freedom.
Nothing says principled person like being in a being grilled by 2 RCMP officers about your book you wrote.
Yes. I'm so principled that a judge convicted me and fined me $3,000.
In fact, said, I am so principled, I have a reckless disregard for the truth.
Yeah.
Wait, hang on. And that's not that.
Yes, such a reckless disregard that he read us the exact law on air and how he broke it.
Read
Such
our
principles.
appeal in
Yeah.
full. It's only 7 pages long, and it's written in pretty plain English. And if you agree with me that we ought to fight rather than pay the fine, please help chip in to cover the cost of our appeal. Unlike John Iveson and Aaron Wary, we don't take a dime in government money. We rely 100% on viewers like you. Thank you, my friends. If Trudeau thinks I'm going to shut up about him, he's dead wrong. By the way, do you think maybe it's time I should write another book about him? Maybe I should do another one, timed just before this year's election.
If
Yeah.
he does, he just broke the law.
Yeah. Yeah, that fucking. I can't wait to see Ezra have to pay back $6,000 to your government.
Here's like the best part is I want to be clear here. I do think he broke the third-party election laws the last time he did this, right? But he was not that fucking clear and specific in doing it. Instead, he was like, he did this huge rollout. He said, we're gonna organize this campaign. We're gonna have lawn signs, and we're doing it all for the election. Here he's like, listen, next time I'm gonna write the book, and we're doing it specifically, and we're gonna release it right before the election to make a point. Let's listen to it right again. He specifically lays it
He's
out.
dead wrong. By the way, do you think maybe it's time I should write another book about
Maybe
him?
I should write another book.
Maybe I should do another one, timed just before this year's election. Hey, thanks.
That's a specific intent to release the book right before the election, which, if you read the law earlier that he read, let's listen to him read you get him to read the fucking law again. Nope, that wasn't it. Further up. Yeah, here we go.
Whose letter specifically referenced exemptions to the definition of election advertising under the Act, including the promotion of the sale of a book if the book was planned to be made available to the public regardless of whether there was to be an election.
Now, doesn't it seem like at the end of this video, what he's doing is intending to sell a book specifically because there's an election, which means that this exemption doesn't cover you, Ezra. Jesus fucking Christ. Well, at least we have it saved for record, and let's just everybody remember this moment. We've got it saved, and come next election, let's all collectively file third-party election complaints against Ezra Levant.
That's a fair point. Yep.
Because it's clear to me he's about to break the law again. Because of course he is. Fucking Ezra.
I went quiet there because I was trying to figure out who published the that other Trudeau one.
Aaron
Not
Wary?
Iveson. No, because Aaron Wary, that was the HarperCollins. The Iveson, I think, was the
Signal.
It said Signal, which is a imprint of McClellan, which is an imprint of Penguin Random House, which is the largest book publishing company in the English language. So again, definitely know the fucking law on book publishing.
Yeah, but not only that, did John Wary or Iveson create lawn signs to coincide with the selling of their book? Because that's part of the $1,500 for Ezra was the selling of the book with the specific intent to release it at that time. The other $1,500 was for the lawn signs that was clearly advertising during an election.
I think all books should get lawn signs. I think that'd be pretty fun.
Yeah, every single book gets a lawn sign.
Could you imagine lawns? Just signs, all of them, as everyone's advertising everything. Oh, there's my new mixtape's out. Lawn sign.
Yeah, you wake up and it's like, oh fuck, Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows. What the shit? Okay, I guess I'll buy that.
Oh my god. I
The
couldn't.
world would be more colorful.
Yeah, I'd rather it be colored with nature, not plastic and metal yard signs.
I didn't say plastic and metal. It can be wood with paint.
Everyone's lawns become like. Have you ever seen that when you're driving into Toronto and they do like it'll be like corporation logos, but they're like made out of the flowers on the side of the hill.
Yeah.
Do shit like that.
Perfect.
All right, that's all we got for you tonight. We caught Ezra possibly breaking the law again, possibly because it's a future thing. There's likely going to be an election called sometime in our near future. I've heard rumors about fall. We don't know though. Who knows? Canada's weird. But if an election is called and he immediately releases a book, you done it again, Ezra. You done it again. Let's see if he does lawn science or anything else. And yeah.
Oh, Ezra, you rebel.
Yeah. Well, here's what annoys me. As someone who cares about justice, I don't think every law is just. But if I honestly cared about the injustice of a law, you break it stipulating that you know that you're purposely breaking. What annoys me is he always does this and is like, it's not even a law. It's like, why don't you just admit that you purposefully broke the law because you're trying to make a point and then make that point? But instead he has to like beat around the bush that it's like it wasn't, they're coming after me and it's not a law in the first place. And it's like, no, it is a law in the first place. You read it on your fucking show. Like,
well, that's the thing, Jody. If he does it the way that you're describing, that's only 1 or 2 videos. But if he beats around the bush, he can milk this shit for years.
I mean, I guess like you could milk it the other way too, but the milking has more to do with like, come with us, we're fighting for a just cause, and you have to explain why it's a just cause. What he gets to do here in the way that he's doing it is he gets to pretend like there's some like mega conspiracy that's out to get him, and they're all like the RCMP are all in tandem with Justin Trudeau and the legal system that's all conspiring against me. And so I guess like that appeals more to his like conservative far right fan base.
Yeah, that's far more palatable for them than I'm going to break this law intentionally and make a point about why I think it's unjust.
I mean, it's even weird with the COVID lockdown stuff because even when they're breaking laws there, they stipulate that they don't think that they do the same move. My laptop died. Sorry, Vienna. This is the issues we were having back on Tuesday when we were trying to record the podcast.
Sucks.
Yeah. Even with the COVID stuff, they do the same move where it's like like we saw Chris Sky, right, when he was doing his yelling at the police or whatever. His main thing was that he's like, you don't even have to pay these fines. These fines are unconstitutional. They'll drop all the charges because it's all a ruse. It's not real. Meanwhile, people are being fined and the charges are not being dropped. But they get to play this game like the whole thing, it's not even really illegal. It's all a ruse. When it's like, why don't you just say, I see you made a law. I'm going to go against it. And then I'm going to appeal because I don't think that it's a constitutional law. Right? Like, at least be honest with what you're fighting. Like, it's almost like they know they can't win with the honesty, so they have to make it about a conspiracy theory. And it's like, I can't get into that mindset. Like, I guess that's the only way they know how to, like, milk the money from these people. Is to pretend like there's some giant conspiracy against them.
It's you against the world, and that frames every discussion and every piece. And that's why there has to be a conspiracy for everything.
Yeah. I think part of it, too, is it's harder to, like, pin them. Like, I guess if they were to come out and be like, this law is unjust, then I would be able, like, I think people like me and other people would go, look, this is why we have campaign finance laws. And now we're in the nuance of, like, why our legal system is set up the way that it is and why we want to keep it that way. Where he does not want to keep it in that realm. He wants to make it out to seem like there's a huge conspiracy that, like, is out there to get everyone. And that's, like, harder to fight because it's hard to fight a conspiracy theory because people who believe in the theory are not going to be convinced by facts and evidence because they already believe something without evidence, right? They already believe that like there's these hidden people out there pulling strings and calling all the shots. And so there's nothing that like if I were to come and be like, well, this, and this, and they'll be like, no, but those are themselves evidence of the conspiracy theory. You're not disproving anything. That's evidence. It's all hidden. It's all behind the scenes. You don't understand. It's deeper than all of us, and it's coming to get us. And so you can't beat them.
Hello, my rebels. Hello, my rebels. I'm a good boy. I'm a weirdo.